you can't stay here. That's right. Okay. Annie, take it away, baby.
I feel like I should stand there. Hi. So it sounds like everyone's had some coffee. I had a little afternoon coffee. And before I start, I just wanted to thank, Mark, Adam, Lori, Eric. Infinity Festival number 7 is amazing. So big round of applause to you guys. And so for me, this topic, this panel is really close to my heart because I used to work in content partnerships in a company called Electro. And it was, our partnership ecosystem was like the lifeblood of what we were doing. So I'm really excited to hear from our panelists. So let me introduce them. Gotta get my cheat sheet out. Mishawn, want to start with you? Come on up. Mishawn Nolan, co-founder and co-managing partner at Nolan Hyman. Woohoo! We need walk-on music for next year. No, for next year. Scott Connolly, head of media and technology at Verizon Innovation Labs. Shira Lazar, co-founder, host, EP of What's Trending. Former head of media and entertainment partnerships at Intel. And he has an awesome band with Moderator. And Josh Minney, who you may have recognized from the panel just before.
Let's get you a seat.
Do you need a chair? Do you want my chair? I can stand. We got a new chair. He's head of inception program for media and entertainment at NVIDIA.
Your chair closer, you're so far from us. Okay, I can see you now.
I know. I won't ask any questions. I'll hand you mine when I ask you questions. Okay, so Shira, I want to start with you because I thought people, they always think of the tech, but I really want to concentrate on the creators as well. So how do you see creators, contributing or shaping the future of technology through partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously here. It has been here. I was in it, 20 years ago when, it was more rogue. Influencers weren't really around. Like, we were just called, kids doing things, or, those who couldn't. There were actually kids doing things. I was, semi-adults, but it was more those who wouldn't get accepted by traditional media, and we found the medium to do what we wanted to do and what we love doing. And I think we're seeing it obviously shift media at large from the news. I mean, obviously we saw what happened with the election, to every other industry. Consumers trust individuals now more than brands. And so what does that mean in terms of partnerships and marketing, right? I think that, companies, including tech companies, really need to think about that and think about how they're going to build those bridges in an authentic way, because if creators and individuals are becoming the medium and the message, what does that mean in terms of how you build your marketing plan holistically? And I think that's awesome. I'm super excited about it, but my hope is that it's not just one-offs that happen. I think if we're going to build a sustainable space for all of us, we need to be thinking about real collaborative long-term relationships where we can test things out, where we can get creative, where we're helping the company's helping us. It's a partnership. Just like you would have with a traditional media company. You would sit with them, at CES and have your closed-door meetings and think about the year. Why are we doing that with creators, right? Why aren't we saying, hey, where will you be? Oh, maybe we'll drop into that. Here's where we'll be, tomorrow drop into this. I feel like these are happening, but not really at the level that I want to see. But again, that's where I see creators as trust agents. And then they are the companies. They're a new form of small business. So looking at them as that in many ways. And I do think, I'll just one more thing, because I'm a broadcaster, I could talk for hours. Is this a keynote? No. And one more thing, I do think that more and more companies, including tech, will have creator residents, right? We'll have, the creators alongside the CMOs, really building those relationships with the creator, the economy, creator community.
And I have to say, Shira's a great follow on socials because no one has been at the White House more in my feet than you.
Unfortunately, this will probably be the last year that I'm invited, right?
already have some good plans in place, it sounds like. So Scott, jumping to you. Verizon is just starting to develop partnerships in the media and entertainment product space, but obviously has incredible success with partnerships like with the NFL. What are you focusing on as you roll out this M&E vertical? And I'm guessing it has something to do with 5G.
It does. Yeah, so we started this media and entertainment specific vertical just this last year, and we're starting to expand in that space. And to your point, it does have, we are building on top of our networks, and most of our offerings have been on our public network to this point, meaning the same cellular service that you're getting to your cell phone. What we're now doing is actually deploying private networks, purpose-built systems that we're building on top of those private networks in a modular fashion in both hardware and software. Now, what does that mean? It means that we can deploy a network and deploy a bubble of coverage for several miles in that space, which is an entirely private ecosystem. And on that ecosystem, you can use it to distribute your video, you can put a compute module on top of it and deploy your AI in a completely secure fashion. So in that space, as we're building this ecosystem, we're now working with partners to bring them onto that ecosystem and deploy in an entirely new fashion.
Amazing. I'm excited to see this all unfold. So we're very lucky to have Mishawn with us today, who can talk a bit about sort of the legal standpoint of all this. So just in terms of like how do the partner goals impact the structure of an agreement, especially, you want to make sure everyone's goals remain aligned. And I'd love your take on that.
Yes, everything does come down to alignment. What I have found, and I work with smaller companies, is that it's a challenge when you work with larger companies because their legal agreements are not very flexible. The smaller companies, they're more able to be fluid and flexible and agile when you're negotiating deal terms. But the mistake that a lot of people make is they get the contract and they look at the contract and they try to make the contract fit the situation. It's actually backwards, right? So first you put the parties in alignment. What are the risks? How are you leveraging assets? How are you leveraging relationships? How are you getting through the noise? How are you protecting the property? And you look through all that, and then once you have put all of those into alignment, you can then craft the agreement after that. So it's really about identifying everyone's fears, everyone's goals, reducing risk, making sure everyone is contributing what they're supposed to be contributing, who's owning the intellectual property, and once you identify all of that, and be very flexible about all of that, based on who those particular parties are, then you can craft a deal based on the areas of alignment.
And then are there any trends that you've seen coming into play here, just because these collaborations are all sort of new? It's all a bit of new space, especially with AI and all these sort of unknown, whatever's coming next.
Yeah, so what I like to do is I love baby steps. I love to work incrementally because collaborations, right, when you're creating, the creative iterative process is messy, right? And you don't want to invest too much up front because it could be a waste, right? And so what I really like to do is I like to structure things incrementally. So you enter into a collaboration for the first step, and then once you hit a particular milestone, if everyone agrees and everyone wants to move forward, then you go to the next step. Because if you have to set forth what you're going to do long term, first of all, it's impossible with the amount of change that's going on. And also, it's very expensive, it's prohibitive. And so the best way to go about doing it is in small increments, identifying milestones, and then reevaluating as we work together.
Fantastic. Rick, looking at you. So you were head of media and entertainment partnerships at Intel for almost a decade. So you have a lot of experience in this space. What were you looking for when you partnered with studios and startups?
Oh man, we were looking for, a lot of factors. In fact, Hanlon, who's in the audience tonight, from another ex-Inteller, I don't know what you call her, Nvidians, is that what you say? I don't know how Intellians. Well, we looked at the technical acumen the capability for them not to drive us, even if it's for startups, right? Taking it through a process of how do we evaluate, taking that into our tech team. We have an ecosystem, or I should say, we have different divisions and different business units. Within those business units, you've got technical leads to see the validity of some of these solutions, and going through in some cases, we would also look at our ecosystem with system integrators. I think Josh, I'm not sure if you brought up that point, it was with Champagne, because I feel like this is like almost a part two of what that discussion was, which is great, which is great. You talked about WBT, you talked about GPO, you talked about Insight, Global, these system integrators that we also can bounce off some of these ideas. We're an ingredient, I always say we, and now Intel is an ingredient-based brand, so how do we work with these types of startups and other companies, but also reflect upon who are the larger players in the ecosystem and what do they think, right? And as well as we take them through our processes of evaluation, proof of concepts, and how does that run? How smooth is it? How much do they drive us crazy? An example of that, we were working with a pretty big theme park and working with one major system integrator, working with in some cases we have software parties. We had close to 20,000 software developers, and we had software applications that we hadn't even fully run it through, and we were kind of doing our own evaluation and POCs of how well it was going to work. And some of those things, we take it through milestones and steps, and ultimately we get there, or we don't. And then we are all about seeding and scaling. If this is something that is able to take, and we need those ecosystem partners, I'm sure you see that, in order to do that work. Scaling after some type of seeding that we do is just so important. We need those system integrators to do that work because we can't do it ourselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then when we talked yesterday as well, it's funny thinking about some of the projects that had really big impact that may not be necessarily the most recent. So you brought up the Meg, and I would love a quick overview on that because that was a really interesting example.
Well, if I can talk about this, I want to mention something more recent that we had done. And again, referencing you, because I thought you brought up a really good point about frictionless and how to reduce the friction in given environments and stadiums and venues and environments. And I think we were doing something with a company we found called Wait Time. And basically, how do you reduce the wait time of getting into the venue? They have a parking structure that is just a nightmare. Getting into the venue, getting into the parking structure, and then literally just directionalizing people into the gate and just getting them to the venue earlier so they can have a greater return on ROI. And you also look about retail and hospitality, other things. But for the Meg example, so anyway, Waittime is an ecosystem partner software company that we worked into helping solve, because the 49ers were like the worst in the league as far as gaining entry, so we really helped them with that. But on the Meg example, we worked with a small company called Ziva, who ended up getting acquired by Weta. They were doing simulation and training on creatures and characters. So if you remember the movie The Meg with Jason Statham, giant megalodon shark, and like, how do you get this creature to not look like a sardine? And that was the biggest trouble they were having. So working with them, starting to seed them, and they work with ImageWorks, and I don't know if Mike Ford's in the audience, but working with ImageWorks, DNA, some of these other visual effects shops, and realizing these guys are really onto something, and how can we give them more power, and how can we enable them in order, again, to scale?
Amazing. Josh, I know you were just on stage, but for those... we have so much more to talk about.
I got the best seat in the house, I can learn.
So for those that weren't at the last talk, can you...
Why not?
Yeah. So question number one, why were you not here? Question number two, can you just give kind of the key pillars of the Inception program? Because it's
So the Inception program, greatest name ever. We get to start with startups from their inception. And we have 23,000 members in the program, which is too many for any one person to manage. So I have a team that I work with one. But yeah, we go anywhere from idea, we sort of say crawl, walk, run, right? We have a better name than that. It's start, something scale. And we're sort of there to offer guidance at every step of the way. So we have companies that, they're running off a credit card, or they just raised $500,000. We partner with Amazon, we partner with Google, we get you access to cloud credits, to compute, to kind of those early resources to get your proof of concept out there and try to find your MVP. And then as things move on, and we have different tools and SDKs that help. Like I exist to help you grow with NVIDIA, right? And so we sort of start dating earlier on as we get more serious. And really the NVIDIA way is we work with everybody. We're the GPU company, the compute company that works with everybody. And so I'm not going to enter that market, create a tool, for example, or PDF reader, whatever it's going to be. I want to help you succeed in that market, because when you win, I win. So it's going and helping enable your product, drive down costs, drive down prices, and then help you find customers. And so in this kind of spirit of the partnership, my favorite thing is when NVIDIA will adopt some of the tech that we're using, like that. Now that we're a Fortune 1 company, it's definitely good for those startups that are working with NVIDIA, and that's my dream, right? It's like dog food that, which just creates this beautiful feedback cycle of we're the customer, we're using the startup's product, something's not working, can we help fix it, right? So that's what I like to do. When we start to join them, when we can start paying them, I see that as a win.
So you're not just looking for particular technical challenges. You're looking for.
Those are endless.
Yeah.
Those find us. No, not really. And it sounds like a bumper sticker, but NVIDIA is kind of a giant startup, which people don't think. If you join the company, you'll understand. We have teams in labs. We're like a startup, except we don't have an 18-month funding cycle. So we're probably going to be here in 2027 when the product can get out the door. But we have teams in labs that are working on things, they're working on projects, and we have kind of and NVIDIA, it's up to you to kind of find out what these teams are working on. But I'll find out there's a piece of research, or there's some new tool, or something some product team is working on because they thought, hey, we've been doing this computer vision task for PDFs, but can it work on images? And I hear them and I say, I got a company that's trying to solve this exact problem. Can we get this into their hands to create that feedback loop, right? So it's I'm in a very lucky spot where I can try to enable these startups with their technical challenges. I don't know what your question was, but that's
it was really good.
You got to run that through ChatGPT and shorten it a little bit.
I have a question. How are you working with media or publishers maybe, or content creators? I feel like there's a huge need. Maybe we're not inception, but we're not the beginning, but we're at the beginning of wanting to integrate AI.
Yeah. So we're working with. So we brought out an image generation model, but we went to Getty with it, right? And so now if you go and you use Getty's tool, or Shutterstock has one, and I believe there's working on 3D. It's an NVIDIA architecture, but it's using the Getty data set, right? So we are very sensitive to the disruption that's happening and the rights and the IP and the copyright there. So that's how we work with large publishers, right? So if you were training a large language model on your corpus of data, we'd love to help you do that, and then you can go monetize that. And if I get you to build that model and framework using NVIDIA, you win at it, right? So that's kind of the way we deal with these partnerships with publishers. And I think it's a really interesting space, obviously, because this whole business is built on IP, and now there's new ways to extend the value of that IP, and I think there's oh God, run and hide, what's gonna happen? But now you have this really valuable asset, and the tools exist to extend the value of it, right, in the new ways. It's messy, we're still figuring it out, but I don't do that much personally in my team, but we have a group, that does it.
Interesting. Okay. No, but I'm just selfishly asking. I'm what's trending.com wants to figure out how to integrate AI, but we're like a small business, so.
This is, okay.
We're solving problems right here
very easy
in real
to
time.
integrate AI, right? So that's what NVIDIA's, if you heard the NIM story before, which I won't repeat it, but it's getting very easy to plug in AI to what you're doing, right? So that's never easier, and it's open source. Mark Zuckerberg is spending billions of dollars to create open source AI tools that you can download and run for next to nothing. So if there's an idea for AI, you can plug it into what you're doing. It might be a gimmick at first, I don't know that everybody needs a chatbot for everything, but you can experiment with it and get feedback from your customers and try it. Then you got to solve a guardrails problem, which I think early on a car dealership put ChatGPT in there, and somebody negotiated with it and got a car for $1 that I think Chevy had to honor. So, you know, it'll be messy early on, but it's getting easier to try.
And then can you, again, for the folks who weren't here, and they're probably sad they weren't because there was a GPU under every chair. Lori, I'm stealing your Oprah joke if you showed up to the other panel. How can they find you? I don't know if you guys have the QR code.
If you're a startup, you can join the Inception program. So just NVIDIA Inception. It's an application, it takes 20 minutes, and someone on our team will review it if we think you're fit for the program. We have very open arms. There's just some requirements. We need more than one person. You have to be a registered corporation. So it's, you know, we want to talk and work with everyone.
Awesome. And I think I sort of have a general question for all of you, and I don't know, Scott, if you want to jump in first, although you guys are just kicking things off. But just in terms of, you know, where we're at now, and everyone's mentioned how quickly everything's moving. So how do we sort of future-proof in any sense? Is there like one key factor? I sort of asked this question about everyone that you believe will drive successful partnerships in the future?
One key factor for driving successful partnerships.
And if you have 2 or 3, you can say that too. So whatever feels right.
I mean, for us, what we're looking to do is just be an enabler in this space, right? I think that, you know, Verizon isn't necessarily creating content anymore in the space. We're kind of going back to our roots, and we're looking to empower the creator with our technology. I wouldn't say there's any direct factors that we have, because mostly what we're building is something to allow our partners to have new use cases and to be able to access a market that has more revenue for the company in that space. And what we're doing is building this in a way so that initially we'll be working with select partners to bring over into this private network ecosystem, and eventually you'll be able to self-service onto that as well. And from that point in time, we're looking to see how we can build something that is helps to create content all the way in the future and is infinitely expandable for the creator themselves.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And this is for you as well. How do you de-risk these partnerships, right? So like I work with startups, and like again, I want to find my partners and get them working with Verizon, right? And luckily at NVIDIA, almost anybody will pick up our call. So, you know, how do you just not have meetings about meetings, then you go in a different direction, which is just part of life. But you know, I like this idea of milestones. You know, and especially working with brands and creators, like there's a big brand risk there, right? Like you want to do something, it's got to be good right off the bat, otherwise it's destined for failure. Anyway, you go and ask me.
I mean, for us, we're being very selective, at least initially, right? We're looking, the most amazing thing about this AI revolution right now is really NVIDIA is building the Legos, and small companies who started taking those Legos and building products out of them. And then what we're looking to do is give a new space for those people so that they can deploy that application in the public cloud, but also on the private cloud, which then can be accessed when you need to do something that's entirely secure in a space, especially for AI, where you're looking to not have any capability of that IP to be at risk. But as far as de-risking the partnerships themselves, I mean, I don't know if there's a real answer there, right?
Figure that out.
Yeah.
Mishawn, we're going to throw that to you.
No problem. There's 2 main things I do. One is I always include an unwind provision. What happens if this is not working, right? If you don't think about it as you go into it, you're in big trouble. So I always include an unwind provision. If things don't work out, what happens? Who owns it? Who pays for it? What happens? So I include an unwind. And number 2, you cannot predict everything that's going to happen. So you can't provide for everything, but what you can do is you can provide for a system for making decisions, right? And so instead of trying to foresee everything, which is absolutely impossible, you create approvals, you create a decision-making process, and that will at least allow you to have somewhere to go when everything has changed and what you originally set out to do doesn't even make sense anymore, right? And so then you have decision-making provisions that you can go to.
So
So it's a prenup and a therapist. Cool. Terms I know.
And that's why I think even like, you know, especially for my time at Netflix, like the cross-functional partnerships are so important because, you know, sometimes you can get siloed, especially a company, right, as big as NVIDIA or Verizon, or Intel, so it's like figuring out those conversations. That's why I'm so happy that you're here, because I think it is a big ecosystem, and the closer we are together and sort of hearing the same information, I think it's really helpful. And so Shira, just kind of throwing that same question to you, but I guess in terms of like, how are you seeing creators, like, do you feel like there's more of a democratization, I guess, like knowing that like your program is sort of like apply, you know, there's opportunity now maybe for some folks that would have had to have connections to.
It could go both ways, because I feel like there's more opportunity to be seen and brands want to work with creators, but then there's like the fine line of like, ooh, we're going to do something with you, but then not really pay you, but you're aligned with us. And they're like, what? No, this is horrible. You know what I mean? It's like this weird toxic relationship with platforms and some of these opportunities, right? And so I think that, you know, again, it's about looking like at a creator like you would look at a media business or any of these other partners you're working with. It shouldn't be different. It shouldn't be like, well, you're working with us, so you should be lucky, or, you know, this will help you in the future. Like, that is not a great way to start a partnership. You know what I mean? Again, unless you want it to be toxic and like, then, you know, you're taking advantage of the power like that you have. And so for me, I'm a huge advocate of really having a win-win from the beginning and having value and respect in the relationship. And part of that is saying, you know, this is what we need. One is that interest, like from the brand perspective. Is that interesting to you? We've identified you, like we've seen your content, we love it. So one, like, these are our goals. Does it fit for you? Yeah? Okay, like what do you think we can do within those goals? What creative ideas? Because in the end, they're a creative director, they're a producer, they're an agency in many ways. So, you know, you want to ask them, based on your audience and what you produce, what do you think you could create out of this? And that's such a fun, exciting process. But a lot of times you're sucking the energy out of it, right? And then you're like, why did you even go to this person in the first place? You liked what they did. You see examples of it, you see the results. I mean, maybe it would be different with what you're doing, but there's enough out there as a case study. So again, it goes back to, and I interview creators all the time, and I'm a creator myself, it's like, trust creators. It doesn't mean you need to be a yes person as a brand, but like, look at it as a collaborative partnership and have conversations and ask questions like, okay, we're feeling a bit iffy about this and icky, like, obviously we have our own guardrails because we're a whole huge company and there's like legal things, but like, curious why you think this might work. Like, what is it that we're not seeing? So I really understand what I need to be doing as a brand to champion this idea and you internally. Because like what we need as creators is we need to be not just seen and heard, but we need champions internally. You know how many times I need to like advocate for myself? Like whether it be in a deal, and that's why we have lawyers and agents and all that. But man, even that, you'd be surprised how many times they take my team off. It's so disrespectful. It is so disrespectful. Like if we want to professionalize this space, include my team. Let's have real discussions. If you feel like you're gonna get pushback, then just accept that you're gonna get pushback. But like that, you know, this happens all the time, and because creators, I would say like, you know, we maybe need the money, we want to get the money because like that's how we can do creating the other stuff we want. We'll end up in these really sticky situations just to make it work. And I would love partnerships to be not just a make it work scenario, but like a scenario where we really feel good about it.